Awesome. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming along. This is the third version of the LinkedIn Leaders League, and this time I thought I'd go down into Australia and New Zealand, invite some of my best friends and LinkedIn experts from down there. So I'm going to give people a chance to introduce themselves. Let's start with Linnair. How are you, Linnair?
Hello, I'm well, thank you, John. So I'm Linnair Johnston and I'm from New Zealand. So I'm the only Kiwi in this group at the moment. So I'm the token Kiwi LinkedIn expert and been a friend of John's and an avid fan ever since I came across him on LinkedIn. And now, of course, I'm friends with Karen and with Michelle and really enjoying working with both of them and collaborating on different things. So it's great to be here, John. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Linnair. Okay, over to you, Michelle.
Well, after that, I also am a big fan of John. So we're like the super fan club, John. So thanks for inviting us all. So Michelle J. Raymond, based here in Sydney, big fan of company pages and excited to see where this conversation goes because, you know, there's always lots of changes. So it's exciting to get everybody's opinion on them. So over to you, Tisdall.
Hey, Raymond. Not a fan of company pages. My name's Karen Tisdale and I'm a LinkedIn profile writer. So personal profiles are my expertise. And so Raymond and I frequently argue on that. And I'm ridiculously excited to be with you here, John Esperian, because, you know, this is your Antipodean fan club.
Exactly.
I'm very, very glad that you're here. Thanks for being here, everyone. So on the topic of company pages that you just mentioned, Michelle, so you and Karen do a regular LinkedIn Live kind of boxathon thing where you beat each other up about whether company pages are good or whether personal profiles are good. And a little birdie tells me that you're going to be doing some more content around company pages, possibly in book form. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Michelle?
I would love to tell you all about that, but before I go that far, I reckon even Tisdall loves company pages a little bit these days. And you're right, we have the LinkedIn Roundup every Friday. So before I spill the beans, I'm actually going to let Linnair do the intro because you are right, there is a book coming, and I'm going to let her, drum roll, Linnair, go for it.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, I've been thinking about writing a book about company pages for a while and been procrastinating and doing nothing about it. And then I heard this woman on a podcast, I think it might have been VTEX podcast, lauding company pages. And I thought, there's a woman I really want to get to meet because I really like company pages too, and I believe in them. Anyway, it turned out that she was an Aussie and here down under, that's practically family. So when I got in touch with her, we found we liked each other, got along, and when we decided to write a book together, it just all fell into place. So we're now hoping that we're going to have our book about company pages out in October, and it's going to be called Business Gold. And the subtitle is, and I have to read this because I've only just decided on it, Build Awareness, Authority, and Advantage with LinkedIn Company Pages. And we really believe that company pages are the gold mine of the future on LinkedIn. We know that we're in the minority, but there's two of us now. And so we think that we're a good match for everybody who's a non-believer like Karen and others. And so Michelle's going to tell you why we think that company pages are going to be the next best thing on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Look, and I think that what we've just glossed over there is the amazingness of LinkedIn. So I go onto a podcast with Vitek, who's in Dubai, and then I end up, you know, inspiring someone in New Zealand who then reaches out as a collaboration, which is, you know, also between two, what do you always say, co-opetition, I think is the word, and we're doing this overseas. So we had actually spoken for around 10 minutes, I think the call was, and Linnair says, Michelle, do you want to write a book on company pages? And I was like, whoa, okay, never written a book before, but it's my favorite topic. So as long as she's prepared to help me, you know, after she's written her good book, I was like, if you fill in some gaps about the book, I'll fill in some gaps about the company pages. And, you know, we're pretty proud of what we've put together, and it's in the final stages now and getting ready. So yeah, about 8 weeks away, and it'll be launched on Amazon so everyone can do it. Why did we do this book on company pages? I think the conversation is turning, the tide's turning, and obviously in in the last 18 months, a lot has changed in the world, and businesses are looking for different ways to sell their services. And so I think there's been a huge shift just in that time frame, not necessarily before that, but now if your old school selling methods are out the window. So we're in lockdown here in Sydney. So there's no customer visits, there's no trade shows, there's no industry events. So how do you get people to know about the amazing stuff that people are doing in businesses? And so we wanted to show, at the beginning, how to get started with company pages, and just, really lift the veil on them and show people, that they can actually help your business grow. So thanks for letting us intro this.
Awesome.
We're super excited.
So let me get this right. Is this ready for pre-order yet or not?
Once we've
So
decided on
close.
the cover, we're still battling that one up.
I'm laughing here because I've only been saying that, John, for months. I'm like,
I was gonna say.
I had to be one of the first people. The moment John said book, I'm like, how much do I? And, when can I pay? And he's like, well, here's the pre-order page. Will we
So the
not
good
be able
news
to pay
is-
for it until it launches?
No, the good news is the cover's being designed as we speak. So we saw the first round yesterday, and we've gone back. And so we've got someone that's helping us with that. So, and we're getting some new designs done because we realized that we want as many people to buy it. So Tisdall, don't worry, I'll sign yours and send it with lots of love.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, can you just say what it was called again? Because I really like the alliteration in the title. I wonder if we can get the word Antipodean or Australia or something in there.
No, this is an international book, Karen, so no, I'm afraid not. Business Gold is what we decided on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can, so, and what's the subtitle again? Say that one more time, just so I can listen to it.
Build awareness, authority, and advantage with LinkedIn company pages. Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Cool. And is that going to be paperback, ebook, audiobook, or?
We probably
It's on
won't do.
demand and ebook.
Yeah, I don't think we'll do an audiobook on it, but we'll just see. The demand might be so strong, John, that we just have to.
Let's hope so.
Whose voice would you pick? Tisdall's?
Maybe
you can read it for us.
Did you just say maybe not, John? Did you just say maybe not?
I see.
I'm staying out of this one. All I know
Smart
is
man.
doing the audiobook of Content DNA took me a month. That was a real slog to get done. So
yeah, I struggled with mine too. And I used to be in radio, so I don't understand why it was so difficult, but I really, really was hard work.
Yeah. So anyway, on the subject of company pages and LinkedIn stories, I was looking back at some of my stats for one of my experiments on stories, because I think one of the things we must talk about is the fact that LinkedIn has only just announced that stories are pretty much hitting the can at the end of the month of September. My stories on my company page were getting like single-digit views, really, really bad indeed. What do you guys think of stories in general, stories on company pages? What might be happening to them? What are your thoughts on where LinkedIn is going with stories?
Well, I'm pleased to see the back of them, John, because I was never a fan, really. It seemed to be a lot of work for not much return. And I've seen other stats that you put out that talked about not getting great results on stories. And I had a try with them at the beginning, but I really haven't done anything with them for months. So I'm not a fan, moving on for me. Because I'm mostly a desktop user rather than a mobile user. And I think that's probably part of the reason why it just didn't resonate with me at all. And being a writer, I like lots of words, surprisingly. So again, not a fan of stories for that reason.
What do you think, Michelle?
I was a fan, but not a fan of them for company pages. They did not work. I desperately wanted them to, but even I have to put my hands up and say, even with the most personal of content that didn't look like a company page ad, which is often, the problem with company pages, it just didn't work. I love stories. I was just starting to get the hang of them, and I was hoping that they would upgrade some of the fun stuff that goes with them. And the reason I like that is it actually showed me a whole new audience that I didn't even think was actually on LinkedIn anymore. So when you see, the list of who viewed the story, and I wish you could see that on your posts. So if they could take the who's viewed your post, so those people that scroll on by that you don't get any stats on, if they could take that bit and put it on a post, I think I'd prefer that. But that's the reason I liked it, because I could see, 40 or 50 people that most of them weren't the audience I thought, But I was like, I didn't even realize these people were on LinkedIn because they don't interact with posts at all. So that's why I liked it, to be able to, have a look and use it as another way to engage with people. So, but I'm in the minority. Tisdall, your thoughts? I know you're not on Team Stories. So I think that's, probably shown why LinkedIn's not moving, ahead with it. So yeah, your
Well,
thoughts,
is it
Tisdall?
not moving ahead with it? Because it sounds
It's a
to me
different
like,
version.
yeah, it sounds like it's a different version. And so, while I'm feeling that I'm hearing sentiment that people are going, oh, it's been ditched and it's not going to be great, it could come back really good. I'm not a fan, much like Linaire. I love reading. I'm not into cute pictures with dogs and cats and things. It's just not my thing. So I'm not into stories. But I love what you said there, Raymond. You said, I like that I can see who's looked at it. But what do you do with that information? Do you then go back and say, hey, I noticed that you looked at my post, would you like to talk about this? Like, in terms of Sales Navigator, there's that tool where you can see who's opened those files. What do you do with that information? Information is only good if you can use it, don't you think, John?
Yeah, I agree. And there would also be a problem with doing that for normal posts in the feed because LinkedIn counts those views as impressions. Then someone might just have been speed scrolling past, and that they would have been put into the same list as someone who sat there for 5 minutes and really went deep into it. So, I mean, maybe perhaps they could, if they were to really want to improve this, they could say, here are all the people who clicked the see more link on your post, because that would show a good sign of intent. Whether they want to give us that information is another thing. But I think the real thing they missed out on the stories, and who knows what because they talk about reimagining the video experience and making it more interactive. I don't actually know what that means, but the real trick they missed is not having our stories on our profiles. So if you go to someone's profile, you see their face, you see the orange ring, you see the cover story, and you also see the current story that they've got published. Why not do it that way? Especially when you look at stories on desktop, the look and feel of them is identical to cover story. So that the architecture is already there. They never took advantage of that. And I think I would have got a lot more views and therefore would have stayed a lot more engaged with stories if those stories had been exposed to my followers who looked at my profile, but they never chose to do that. So that's the one thing I think they need to change. If they
I don't
want
think
to
they will, John. Is that where stories are going? I mean, because I've talked about dumping it in its current iterational form. Do you think they are going to change it so that they might take that into account and make it available on desktop too, perhaps?
Well, I think the key feedback that they gave, which was interesting, is they didn't understand, or they were taken by surprise at the fact that people didn't want ephemeral, they didn't want the content to disappear. They were happy to put out something that was not Hollywood production and yet still be visible on their profile beyond 24 hours. And I don't think LinkedIn were expecting that. So maybe there will be something that is the parallel of the featured section, which is just previous stories, and you can just go back maybe 30 days, let's say. I think that would be quite interesting, because you could really start to tell a long-term story. Here's the project I'm working on this month. Go and check out 30 days of stories. That would be quite engaging, and you'd really get to know someone through doing that. Whereas 24 hours, you can't always tell whose stories you're going to see either. That's another thing I don't like. But there are people I follow, but I want to follow their content in the feed, but I don't really want to see their story. And yet a follow is essentially you're opting into both things. And I don't like, there's no optionality there. I think they could make it a bit more granular. So those are the things I would work on if I were them. But we come back to my key issue with the new creator managers really is that I'm not seeing enough outreach from them to actually understand what people like us really want so that they can go and do that thing. They seem to come up with their own innovations that no one asked for. I've never seen people talk about some of these things, and all of a sudden they drop a new thing in there.
And
so,
they never fix the bugs either.
And
Or the things.
I was just thinking that. And how many times do you hear people say, and we really wish messages would be improved? And Raymond often says, the company is owned by Microsoft. it's mastered email. So we've been asking for these things. We've been asking for messages to be improved, and yet it's not been done. But I'd like to think that we're also seeing a bit of a change in that. I mean, Raymond, you're an expert on company pages, and they've
Yeah.
invited you, as is
Yes.
Lanier in terms of writing the
Yeah.
book, but they've invited you to talk with them about it, haven't they? So perhaps,
Yeah.
John, we're seeing a bit of a move from LinkedIn to starting to listen to people.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think the pages team have done really well. And we saw even when stories got killed, everybody that was a page admin got an email notification saying that the stories would be
Yes.
removed.
Yeah.
And it was addressed to page admins. And so
Yeah.
I was like, maybe they're actually listening. So I've had, as you said, I'm part of this advisory council to LinkedIn for pages. And we're, talking about this. So if you go on there now, they've created, testing and beta testing kind of stuff with a limited group of product pages, groups for product pages. Now, if you think about it, it's such a small subset. So a product page is only for companies that have a digital software product on offer. So already we've gone narrow. And then we're going to introduce groups, which if you were listening on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure that I would kill groups before I killed stories. They're testing that. So I'm part of that testing program, and I've got, going to do that with one of my clients. But it was one of those things, just a simple thing. The banner size for this is another different size compared to profiles and pages. And now this one had another different size again. And I wrote back and I was like, guys, is there any way you could just pick either profile size or company page size? I don't really care. Just, can we try and make it the same? Is there a reason it's different? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. So, they are listening. They're taking that back on board. And, we've seen that. Yeah, we've seen that with like the changes to the company pages recently that were rolled out with some of these hashtag feeds and filters. When we went back as a group and said, hey, we've tried this doesn't actually work. Can you change this as this? I was actually really surprised about how responsive they were at taking that away. And I was like, maybe there's hope for this yet. So I get my first call with them tomorrow. I've got a 15-minute time slot. So how much can I jam in and ask?
Yeah. Well, there are two improvements I'd love to see to make company pages better. One would be to have a centralized inbox for direct messages that could then be funneled to a group of page admins. So, and they'd be tagged then to say, this is a company page message and you're on duty now. So this is your ticket to deal with.
It's like what Tisdall said, like, her and I have this conversation all the time. You're owned by Microsoft. Give us a break. You could get, email systems sorted surely. We're not asking for a brand new feature.
Yeah, and to do the same for notifications, because the fact that notifications for companies are separate from personal ones, again, if you could nominate a page admin to take notifications for a day, let's say, then they could come in and be in a different category in the main notification. So you could deal with your personal, you could deal with the company because you're on duty. And that, again, I think would integrate it a lot better. I think there's definite opportunities for them to do that. Let's see what happens, I guess. Right. Have you all seen the screenshots that I shared of the forthcoming dark mode?
I have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You've seen it? Yeah. So what do we think about dark mode coming to LinkedIn? That looks like it's going to be released fairly soon.
I'm not sure I have an opinion on that really until I see it.
I think it's going to help me when I'm sneaking late at night, when I'm like watching Netflix and trying not to be on my phone while I'm in bed watching a show, and I'm secretly looking, and it's not going to light up the whole bedroom. So I don't think it's a big deal, but I think it's something, again, that people have been asking for a long time. So at least there's a small win. But in all, I don't think most people will really they'll just go,
Yeah, it's not top of the list, is it? But Ryan did talk about it in a story quite a long time ago, and it seems like it was going to be imminent. But then someone mentioned it a couple of days ago, and I was told that his post has been removed. So I don't know if he was allowed to say what he did, but I did capture his mobile screenshot, and then I did a little bit of fiddling to emulate that on the desktop. And
I wish they would do a poll. I wish they would do a poll that says, which feature would you release next? So we could actually have some input. I'm not sure that dark mode would be right up there.
No, probably not.
This is maybe where we're disagreeing again, Raymond. I'm really excited about dark mode because the new interface, and it feels weird to call it new because, we've had it for quite a while. It's so bright. You know,
Oh,
when
yeah,
I'm on
absolutely.
Google and I'm on other platforms and I'm moving across different browsers and you know, I've got all my tabs open, as you know, I've always got hundreds of tabs open. You go to LinkedIn, and it's like, boom, where's my sunglasses? It is so bright. It's too
Yeah.
white. So I'm excited by dark mode just because I want something that is less bright. It's
Yeah.
just crazy. You know, at the end of the day, you feel like you've been staring into headlights all day. It's
It
too
will
bright.
use less battery power on your mobile and on your laptop as well. So actually, it's you could say it's good for the environment that it's going to kick out the same information, but without using so many pixels,
Mm.
brightening so
Did,
many pixels.
did I
I'm
read?
excited about it.
Did I read you correctly, John, to say that you thought it might help eye strain, or was that something that was also in the balance of it?
It seems as though the research is a little bit split on this, but I think most people say that having light text on a dark background is better for readability and for eye strain. I don't know conclusively whether anyone's been able to prove that, but certainly I've switched to dark mode and I've felt that my eyes are a bit less strained. I'm able to stay at my computer for longer without feeling as tired. But that's just my personal testimony. But you need to give it a try. But apps like Twitter, for example, I switched to dark mode ages ago. I wouldn't change back now. One little techie thing to note is that given that you will not be able to predict in the future, you won't be able to predict whether your viewers are in light mode or in dark mode, then it will be probably a good idea to start using more transparent PNGs in your image posts and in your image comments, because transparency means that will adapt to whatever the color scheme of the interface is, rather than forcing something to be white when someone's looking at an otherwise black screen. So I've started using PNGs a lot because that allows for that. Whereas JPEGs, which admittedly are usually smaller file size, they don't support transparency. So if you've made a JPEG and the default background is white, it's always going to be white. It doesn't matter if you've got a black background, it's going to be white, and that might make it look a bit ugly. So that's just a little thing to keep in mind there. So it's coming soon. We'll see when they release it. I don't know what else they might be coming up with. Have you heard any news about other stuff that's on the way for LinkedIn?
No, but I've just got, I don't know about you two, Linnea and Raymond, but I've just got the ability to send reviews for the providing services function.
Yeah.
So I got it on Sunday night, I noticed it.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, how clunky is it? It's so clunky, right? You've got to go into providing services and then exit out of it and then scroll to the bottom. It's just, I mean, even as I explain that, it sounds weird, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
And I don't like the way they display the reviews display either. John gave me my first one. It's right at the bottom of my reviews feed, and I don't want it to be at the bottom, but I can't move it. So I really don't like that either.
And there's no granularity about linking to a specific recommendation or review. That would be really nice, because if they coded it so that each thing linked to a discrete page, then you could kind of embed that thing on your website, or you could put it to the top of a list, or you could just direct people to it through an email, for example. That would be really good. That the system as it is means that you can't reorder, and that means the best review in the world might get buried by someone that's a little bit so-so, and I don't like that, but that's just the way that LinkedIn is designed.
Services list is really limited as well, so you can't necessarily add in the service or ask somebody to review you for the service you actually want them to review you for, or that the work you've done for them. And I find that really irritating as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn is not one of the keywords, is it? You can't actually add LinkedIn. So if that's what your business is, you can't put that in there.
Surprise. But they've even got a whole load of one, like mortgage broking is not one. Merchandising is not one. There's a whole load of my clients that provide services that are just
can't use it.
I mean, how many people have merchandising or promotional products and there's nothing in that category? Now I have a question for you all, and it may be that we don't have an answer yet. when I ask people to review my services and I attach it to a specific thing, so
Yeah.
I write LinkedIn profiles. So because they don't have a skill, surprise, surprise, it says LinkedIn profile writing, I just put it on ghostwriting. Now, I don't know how I feel about describing myself as a ghostwriter because I feel I'm not really. So what if I then take off that skill? Will I lose that that review? Surely I
Oh,
won't. But
very
I
good
don't actually
question.
know.
Don't
Do you know
know.
what I mean?
Yeah,
No,
I
I
haven't
don't.
tried that, so I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know what will happen. I mean, well, if it's been well designed, it will either it'll either say you can't remove it because it's been assigned to something that you've got a public review for, or it will say
Mm.
if you go ahead with this, you'll lose the review, or it will say, do you want to transfer this to something else? I don't think that third option is possible because you could then use that cynically to get reviews for something that the other person doesn't actually agree with. So it's more likely that it's frozen forever or that it should warn you if you get rid of it. But I haven't tried it, so I don't know.
Do I remember Brenda Miller saying that you can only have 20 reviews maximum when she got the
You
feature
can
a
only
while
have
back?
20 per year.
20
So,
per
and
year.
it's per
Okay.
calendar year. So if you've only just got the
Right.
feature now, you can go away and ask 20 people to review you, and then on the 1st of
Yeah.
January you can get another 20 in. But I think the idea is long term, people will take services direct from you, and then LinkedIn will prompt them to say, how did you find that service? Leave a rating and review. And at that
Well,
point,
that's marketplace, right?
yeah, it will
That's,
become a much more independent thing then. So do you think that providing services will be added to company pages? Because surely,
no.
no?
So I asked a guy that's in charge at LinkedIn about this because he had it in his job title and he was in the page admins group. And
Yeah.
so I reached out. I thought he'll either ignore me or he'll, just politely tell me to go away. But he actually came back. And so I think he was saying that services marketplace is directed at freelancers specifically. So, and I think they're probably eyeing off places like, I've seen a bit in the feed about like Fiverr, a replacement for Fiverr. So you've got these, like lots of freelancers that can do these casual jobs. And that was more the aim of marketplace. I was a bit disappointed because I was like, I like the idea of marketplace. I like that you're able to do transactions. We see that on product pages within there, but they haven't rolled it out beyond, the digital products. But yeah, it seems to be targeted at that specifically. So my question for you guys, if you had a choice, would you get recommendations from your clients or services reviews?
Well, either of them would be better than nothing. I think, I don't know, probably the reviews. I like the star rating system for companies. I think that's good. But I was just thinking, I mean, if there is no recommendation system, there is no review system, then how on earth can a company demonstrate its kudos such that it'll be found in search results on LinkedIn? That's a really tough gig right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And like I said, the product pages, I don't know if you guys have seen them, but if you've got a client that's got a digital product, they can set one up. And in there you have a featured item section. I think it's about 5 different spaces. You get ratings. You can show your big clients that you work with. And they look awesome. And I've just been sitting there going, please let them go into other markets because they would serve that purpose where you could get client reviews, you could get, the ratings, you could set white papers or featured images, which we can't really do on company pages. So I'm kind of hoping that it just, comes out further and, we've got other opportunities. But right now as a company, no, you don't have anything besides the social proof that you put out there. If you've got screenshots of, service reviews or Google reviews or things like that. So it'd be nice if they got indexed somewhere, and showed up in other search results. But time will tell,
product
right?
pages do. You can review product pages. Did I understand you correctly?
You can
'Cause,
review
I kind of put my
digital
head in
products. Yeah, you can review digital products. So think it could be something like Canva, for instance. They've got a product page. You can go in there and they can highlight the big clients that they work with. They can show like how-to guides, instructional guides, white papers, anything along that side of things. It really looks good. It displays really nicely. And that's, I think, a bit of a of let down that it hasn't gone out beyond that. But I think it's interesting that where they've gone with that is now to have groups for product pages. So, you know, Canva's the best example. So if you go and jump on, Canva has a community page, which is a group for, you know, because they're a product. And so it's really performing really, really well. But I think it's a pretty small niche that would get excited about digital products like that. You know, maybe, yeah.
What do you think about the apparent decline in views on videos on LinkedIn? Because I mean, one thing I note about all of you is that I don't, although, you know, this is a bit of an exception in that, you know, Michelle and Karen, you get together on LinkedIn Live for an organized chat together, but that's not, for me, that's not the same as putting out videos in your normal feed, like pre-recorded stuff. What do you think? Are your clients noticing that videos actually aren't doing very well for them? What's your general feel for that? Because I've seen my numbers go down a bit, and I don't know whether that's something to do with creator mode or maybe just everyone's on holiday. I've no idea. But have you got any feeling around the state of video and whether it's kind of hit its peak, or what do you think?
I don't think it's got anything to do with creator mode. And I don't think that just because of what I've heard from other people. So especially Easy Peasy Video, Gillian.
Whitney.
Yeah, Whitney. Yeah, absolutely. So she's been capturing just some stats. And I mean, it's just anecdotal, but she's saying it's not making a difference. My hope, and what I've been saying is possibly the case to my clients, because, you know, I don't know, is that I hope that we're seeing a truer view. So whenever my clients release an article or a newsletter, but particularly articles, they're always disappointed that they're not getting as many views on an article as they are a post. And I'm saying, you're comparing an apple with a banana. They're different views. So I hope that and we've always known that videos get different views again from a post. So I hope that what we're seeing on videos are a truer view. So you know, that 3 seconds or longer, and then it's recorded as a view. I wonder if that's changed and nobody's told us. I mean, that would kind of be a bit LinkedIn, wouldn't it, to sort of change something and not mention it?
Yeah, Richard Vanderblom's got some research coming out fairly shortly, so I guess that'll cover that and tell us what the real story is about videos. The question I've got, John, do you think that Google's indexing posts still, and particularly ones with videos in them?
Well, last time I checked, only about 10% of my posts, my short form posts, were being indexed, but that seems to be a lot more than what other people see. Very often I show people how to do a search for their posts on Google, and they might find a comment that they've made on one of my posts, and that's the only thing that gets indexed. And I've no idea why some of my posts get indexed when others don't. Why would it be only 10% or so at my last check? I'm not quite sure what's going on. Was it an experiment and they've decided to pull the rug under that? I don't know. It would be nice to think that all LinkedIn posts would be indexed. It doesn't look like that's the case, and I can't see a pattern of why something would be indexed versus another. So I don't know whether you found anything like that, but I haven't seen the posts that are indexed. They're not even particularly well performing. It's not like, you know, if I get 20,000 views, or that one's going to get indexed now. It doesn't work like that. So I'm really unsure about that. But, you know, for videos, I just I tell people, make sure that your video is hosted somewhere other than LinkedIn, as well as, you know, by all means upload your native stuff to LinkedIn, but have it sit somewhere else, because you just never know when a post might just vanish. And sometimes it seems to be a glitch, you know, and the post is gone, and you think, well, there's no way they could have pulled that. There was nothing controversial about it at all. It's just gone, and I can't find it again. And of course, LinkedIn hasn't introduced a videos tab for personal profiles yet, so you can't just go back and review all of your past videos. And so, you know, always have it as an unlisted video on YouTube, or a public video on YouTube, or on Vimeo, or even on both, so that you've kept a record of that thing, I would always say. Yeah, I'm doing a check at the moment, and I won't have the results probably till next week to see. I'm just going to scroll my feed and find the first 100 videos that I find, and just see what proportion of them have got captions and how long are they on average. Everything I'm seeing I was going to do a third check, which is how many of them are native versus how many of them are YouTube. All of them are native. I'm not seeing any links out to YouTube. They're just not being surfaced to me at all. All of them are native videos. So I've kind of forgotten about that test. I've gone through about 50 or 60 and I'm making notes, and I'm going to see what the average length of time is and what the caption percentage is. I think that might be interesting, because my gut feel is that about 90 seconds is good, and obviously making content captioned is a very good idea. But there's a lot of very, very short videos, and I wonder if, and this is just a hunch, but it's almost like LinkedIn likes to show those looping videos because people seem to play them more than once. And I think that the cutoff for the loop is 15 seconds, I think. So if it's longer than that, it doesn't loop.
But it's funny because that's stories, right? Stories are, 30 seconds and under. So it's really interesting that if you do a similar thing in the feed, it's getting rewarded and getting played and going rounds. But if you do it in stories and it disappears, then it's been given the flick. So yeah, it's really interesting how that works. I mean, my feed in general is very unpredictable, and I don't need people to say to me, oh, it's not the algorithm and all that. Like, I get it. Like, I don't need to be told. But what I've noticed is it takes longer to kick off. At some stage I'll be sitting there, I'll have maybe 300 views, and I'll be like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it seems to just chug away, and it's lasting longer, so I think the curve, instead of going up down, is now like this, and it's a lot more flattened out rather than this peak trough. And so
do you use Shield Analytics?
No, I'm not good with analytics. I don't have the attention span to do anything like that. I rely on your work, so thank you, John.
Yeah, it's because one of their recently released metrics is called speed views, and that is an extra graph, an extra line that appears on the view graph, which is basically, it's a measure of the acceleration of the post, and it shows you how many views per hour the thing is getting. And what the makers of Shield have said is, if you keep an eye on that graph, the moment that you see that hitting its peak and then it starts falling away, that's the point where you need to put another post into flight. Basically, it's had its time now. And that time might be a few hours, it might be a few days. But when you see that graph start to decline and consistently decline, you know that you're ready to put another post out. So I think Andreas does this quite scientifically, and he knows that he'll always have a post that's highly visible because he'll keep an eye on that particular graph. So that's an interesting thing. I haven't really done that myself, but I do advise clients that LinkedIn won't promote two posts at the same time. It almost never happens. I think once or maybe twice in my 4 years of observing LinkedIn, I've seen a couple of posts from the same person very close together in the feed. Generally speaking, it doesn't like to do that. So, don't starve the oxygen of one by putting another one into flight, or, if one has failed.
I think if I started doing analytics, I would never stop. I think I would just get lost in it. And I love what I know when Tisdale and I have discussions like this, it's always like, if you're lost in the analytics, are you focusing on the relationships, which, she's a big fan of? Is that, I could just go into it and go, this is all cool and fancy and, mesmerizing, and down I'd go down another rabbit hole, and I don't need any more attention stolen away.
It surprises me because you're so analytical, you're so strategic in how you think, and you're so evidence-based. So it always surprises me that you're like, no, I don't want to look at all of the little data. I just want to look at the big picture. And if I start looking at the little data, I lose the sense of the big picture. It always surprises me.
But you would know how your posts are going. Like, I've been doing this for 8 years. You've been doing it for longer. Like, when you do it for that long, you know when it's dropping off. Like, you feel it. I don't know. I don't need anything else to tell me about that side of things. I like the idea of it. It's just another distraction that I just can't be trusted with. So.
And I haven't got the time to sit around looking at them. So I just put them out there and come back at the end of the day and reply to the comments. And that's about as far as I'll go with me, really. Really, who's got the time?
But I really love what John said about, don't starve
John,
the
thank
oxygen
God.
of another. Yeah, John. But yeah, John, thank God. That's why we all worship at the altar of John.
Yeah.
Go on, Karen. Sorry.
I starved the oxygen of a post the other day. I'd promised somebody that I would post something, and I already had a post that was doing quite well, and I put out a new post, and then boom, suddenly my old post that was performing really well for one of my first posts for ages, that was doing incredibly well, just suddenly just stopped. And the post that I'd promised this person that I would put out, yeah, I'll write about this thing, and it just completely died. So it's so important to everybody listening to this to just, even if you don't invest in Shield, just get a sense of how the posts are tracking, and don't starve the oxygen of one. Well said.
Yeah. And what I'm doing just to try to give my post just a little bit of a boost is whatever my latest post is, I will try and put that as the first item in my featured section, just in case someone happens upon my profile but hasn't seen me in the feed. Maybe that will get them to have a look into the first featured item and maybe engage with the post that way. That it's all marginal gains, isn't it? You just want to get a few more views. It's why not if it's something easy to do. And as I think I might have mentioned just before we started recording, my current experiment is to turn off creator mode. So my featured section is now a little bit further down my profile than it was before. Just to see whether that actually has any kind of impact on the view counts for my content, because I have been noticing the last 18 months my view counts have definitely been going down, but I don't really know whether I can attribute any of the last 4 months of decline to creator mode or not. So that's an ideal candidate for an experiment. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. We'll see what happens, and I'll report my results in early October. We'll see where we go from there. So I don't know whether you're experimenting with creator mode at all. Are you happy with it? Is it working out for you?
I was just getting so many invites from people that are not my target market. So having Follow First on.
Yeah. I've been doing that for years already. Yeah.
Oh, since you talked me into doing that, it's just because I heard you talk about that and was like, no, I really like the idea of being accessible. And then the moment I tried, I just wasn't, I wasn't having all of those people sending me invites. So it means I'm more proactive in sending invites. You're about to say something, Linaire, and I talked over the top of you. Raymond will tell you that's something I do quite often. What were you about to say, Linaire?
I was about to say that creator mode didn't do any good for me at all, so I turned it off after a month. I found that it completely halved my follower percentage increase, and all my other metrics went down as well, including my search appearances. That went down by 60%. I just didn't like it at all. And virtually nobody reached out to me in terms of connecting because of that extra step that you have to take. So I decided that in the interest of being open and available, that they would just turn it off, and everything seems to have bounced back to normal. Now, I didn't notice really a huge drop in views. That was the only thing that just seemed to be sort of relatively stable. But the thing with the views on both my own posts and on company page posts is that they can be so variable that there's no rhyme nor reason for it. I had one on Friday. Friday's a bad day for me to post. Last Friday that got 30,000 views. The next day I was lucky, next week on Monday, Tuesday, lucky to get 300. And you just go, this makes no sense to me how this is. So I really tend to take those kind of metrics with a bit of a grain of salt. And John, you've talked about this before. You talk about the trend, I think, rather than individual increases, and what each post might be doing separately, but see whether there's a trend for going up or down. And I've had some real wild numbers this year that have just made no sense to me at all. Right. In either direction, really high or really low.
Part of it is the kind of the casino that is social media. You can't ever quite predict what's going to happen when you spin the wheel. And I can't remember if it was a week or two ago that Mark Williams mentioned one post that was on his podcast, I think, that had been put out once and it did okay. And then the exact same post was put out, a little while later, and it just blew up. And we're talking like proper viral. And it's the same content. And if you just judged it on the merits of the first set of results, you think, oh yeah, okay, lukewarm reaction. but that the same content at the right time can obviously can blow up. So it's very hard to make judgments from that. You just don't know when you're going to spin the wheel and get lucky.
But do you ever do that, John? Repost something you've already put out?
Well, not with exactly the same words, because I feel as though LinkedIn is going to detect that something is duplicate content and isn't going to like it. And I have had in the past, when I've tried to share a link that I've already shared, it will say this link has already been shared. I'm like, what? Hang on. Now that hasn't happened for me for a while, but it suggests that if I were to put a new message out, that I really should tweak the messaging a little bit rather than just doing a straight copy and paste of something I've put out before. So yeah, that's an interesting side note. Another thing that's new for me, and I'm sure you'll have all got this a while ago, is the 3,000 characters. I've only had that for 2 or 3 days now. So
Have you? Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
It took
Sorry,
ages to roll it
sorry,
out.
did you say you've only had that for a few days? Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah.
Really?
I messaged support a few weeks ago and said, like everyone else has got this now. Can I possibly find out when I'm going to get it? And they said, yeah, it's on rollout, so not everyone has got it. So
yeah, I found that with my scheduling platform that I use for like my clients and my posts, is that when I tried to go over the 1,300 characters, which I was like, that's okay, I can do 3,000 characters, that's fine. And then what would happen is it wouldn't go. And I was like, what's going on? So I complained to the guys. I was like, this isn't working. Why isn't it? And the API hasn't been updated because obviously LinkedIn hasn't rolled it out completely. So they don't let it go out until everyone's got it. So that was interesting for me because I was like, I've had this for 3 months. Has it been maybe? Yeah, like not, a couple of weeks. It's been long enough that I can't even remember. I haven't used it since I did that article when I first got it, that first one, never used it. And I still don't like that you can't keep a track of your number of characters until you get to the end. So where you used to get to 1,300 and then it would start going, you've gone over and you could see the count and it's like, man, what am I going to have to lose? You don't have that editing anymore. And I can see the length of posts in the feed are now starting to get a bit longer, as we all just keep typing. So yeah,
it saves me writing your posts inside LinkedIn as opposed to outside LinkedIn, because I think that's really risky. Because what if your browser refreshes or something and you've just lost
I live on the edge, John. On the edge.
I live on the edge too. I write it in Microsoft Word and then I load it up. But what is it, that was it Abraham Lincoln said, Oscar Wilde, writing is never finished. It is only ever abandoned. So you write something and then you go load it up and then I'm like, it would look better if I did this and it would look better if I did that. And then I've made it absolutely perfect and then my browser crashes. So I know. But like yourself, Raymond, I also live on the edge. So yeah.
I write mine because I'm a Mac user and I'm an iPhone user. So my notes are synced between my Mac and my phone with the Apple Notes app. But the great thing about writing my posts there is that I can do an instant search of all of my posts and it will immediately come up. So if I'm looking for a phrase or a hashtag and when did I last use that, it's just an instant and I don't need to even go into LinkedIn because everything is done there in date order. So I'd recommend that, because if you ever want to repurpose your content, you do not want to go back into LinkedIn and have to suck it out of there. So yeah, and you just never know. You've written the best post in the world and then LinkedIn crashes and you're like, I've got to write this again. Or even with comments, sometimes I will write a comment in a text editor because I might think, I'm not sure, trying to attach an image to this and it might just barf on me. It's better to write it in a platform that's a little bit more stable than good old LinkedIn.
Imagine if you could just print out like a book, like all of your posts. Like I wish my posts were that interesting, but it'd be awesome to be able to have like a hard copy book of it, as a bit of a nerd thing, so that you could flick back and see your history of what you were creating. Because it's almost like my diary in some ways, so what was on my mind that time. It's not all just about LinkedIn, right? It depends on your mood for the day, who you're interacting with, friends that you meet. Like, yeah.
You're incorrigible, Raymond.
Yeah.
Really, I think I'm the same. I'd like to think I'm the same shape everywhere. Just saying.
Profile.
No, John, didn't you actually start that? Like, you had a whole series of posts that you
Yeah, I mean,
thought that was your original format for your book, right?
yeah,
But then you had
that's right. The engine room of Content DNA was really my business blogging guide, which was, you know, made up of loads of blog posts, and it was like 35,000 words. And I thought, well, that's the guts of a book right there. And it was just started off from lots of little social media posts that I turned into blog posts that I've parlayed up into a book. And I'm doing the same with the second book, which is every time I make some kind of, you know, semi-interesting comment on someone's post, I might just go, oh, I'm going to save that snippet. I'll find somewhere to use that. And essentially the book is going to be composited from lots of interesting little ideas and tips that I've shared and new ways that I've phrased things. And that's, yeah, that's my way of building a book. So do
And
with
that's
that
how I
information
started
what you want.
mine. That's how I started mine too. But in the end, I just gutted it and started again. I just found that the things that I would like.
Don't do that to ours. We're nearly there. Don't do it.
Yeah. Because the
the
smart,
end is nigh. The end is
the smart
nigh.
way the smart way to write a book really is to sit down, think about what your chapters are going to be, and then write to that brief that you've created for yourself, right?
Yeah.
But haven't done it like that. I've just gathered loads of little notes here and there through posts and through comments, and see what people respond to. And really, I'm writing the things that people respond to. If someone doesn't respond to something, there's no point putting it into a book. But if something got good reactions, loads of comments, that's a good sign that if you put it into a book and put some more thought around it, it's probably going to do quite well. That's exactly what I did with Content DNA. That's what's going to happen with Relentless as well. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to what you come up with. Sorry?
When's it out?
I haven't got a release date yet. It'll be sometime next year. I'm still what I'm probably going to do is get on LinkedIn Live and start speaking out loud about my ideas for each of the chapters that I've got so far. I've got about 60 chapters planned. They're all really short so far, so that sounds like a lot of content. It's not really, and that will probably help push me forward with codifying the ideas that are going to go into the book. So look out for that.
Have you got
Yes.
a pre-order form? I can't remember if I've pre-ordered or not.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. What's going on, John?
Well, only because I really don't know when it's going to be released. I've kind of got a book cover, I think, but I want to get some more ideas down before I'm ready, and it'll be sometime next year. So yes, you will be seeing.
Got the title though, so that's good. I mean, how it could
That's a
be
great
anything
title.
else, I've got no idea. But you know, I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it?
Got to be relentless. Now,
Yeah.
can you just step us back on the tech a little bit, John, for those who are listening to this and watching this, because I'm not an iPhone user and nor am I a Mac user. But how do you sort out all of your posts? So when you said you search by them, I mean,
Yeah, so I use the Apple's built-in Notes app, and you can just create new notes within that, and then you write your posts in there. But it's got a global search. So if you do a search in there, it's going to search every one of your files, not just the file that you're in right now. And so that's a really quick way of sorting through and say, when did I last talk about so and so? I'm sure that you can do things like that in, let's say, OneNote. If people use that, or Evernote. Evernote syncs across devices. There's loads of different note-taking apps, but I think you should create your content somewhere that you know that it's going to be safe, because it's something you ultimately should want to repurpose. The best stuff should be turned into blog posts, maybe something for a chapter of a book, maybe a script for a video. It could be bullet points for your next appearance on a podcast where someone wants to ask you about LinkedIn and you've already written 3,000 characters on it, and you can summarize that and have that right in front of you. Always think in terms of repurposing. That's the smart way of doing it, I think. Yeah.
love it. Love it.
Okay,
so
right.
my crusty old Microsoft Word document's not really cutting it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's very hard to
Not
see.
more than me.
Very slow and clunky. Yeah. Okay, well, listen, it's been wonderful speaking to you all. I'm going to try and get this one out as soon as I can. So hopefully, by the time you all wake up tomorrow, you'll see it in your feeds. And I hope this video has helped people. So thanks again for my Australian and New Zealand friends for coming along for the LinkedIn Leaders League Part 3. And I will see you all again soon. Thanks a lot.
You
Thanks,
will.
John.
Take care,
Fantastic.
everyone.
Over and out.
Cheers.